Ethan had always lived a quiet life. He wasn't the type to attract attention. A farmer by trade, his days were spent tending to his crops and animals, living in a small house on the outskirts of town. He liked it that way. Life was simple. But one evening, everything changed. The sky was clear. The stars just starting to appear as the sun dipped below the horizon. Ethan had just finished feeding the horses when he heard a loud crash. The sound was like thunder, but it didn't come from the sky. It came from the forest. His heart raced as he rushed toward the source of the noise. When he reached the edge of the forest, he couldn't believe his eyes. A large metal object, a ship of some sort, had crashed into the ground. The wreckage was scattered around, and the smell of smoke filled the air. Without thinking, Ethan ran forward, his only concern to make sure there was someone inside. As he reached the wreck, he found two figures. One was an alien woman, covered in strange markings, her clothes torn, and her body badly hurt. She was barely conscious, but she clutched something tightly in her arms. Ethan's eyes widened when he saw the small child, a little alien girl. Wrapped in blankets, nestled in her arms, he didn't know what to do. He had never seen anything like this before. The woman, still breathing, looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The child, though, was quiet. Her big eyes stared at Ethan, unblinking. Ethan hesitated, for only a moment before he moved quickly to help. Couldn't leave them there. He knelt beside the woman, gently touching her shoulder. "It's okay," he murmured, though he wasn't sure she could understand. "I'll help you." The woman blinked slowly, her eyes filled with fear, but she didn't fight. Ethan carefully lifted the child from her arms and cradled the little one close to his chest. Her small, warm body felt strangely comforting, and, despite the shock of the situation, he felt a sudden sense of responsibility for her. He moved the woman and the child to the barn, where it was safe. The barn was small, but it was warm and protected from the wind. Ethan gently laid the woman on a bed of straw and covered her with an old blanket. He worked quickly, finding water and cleaning up her wounds. The child remained in his arms, silent, her eyes watching him carefully. Hours passed before the woman stirred again. She moaned softly, her hand reaching out to the child. Ethan watched closely, afraid she might be in pain, but also wondering who she was, where she came from, and what. This all meant where. The woman's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly. "You're safe now. I don't know who you are, but I'll help." Her eyes locked onto his, and for a long moment they studied each other. Ethan couldn't quite understand what was going through her mind, but he sensed fear. She was afraid. But of what? "I need to leave," she said weakly, her eyes flicking to the child in Ethan's arms. She needs to return." Ethan frowned. Didn't know what she meant, but he didn't like the idea of them leaving. He'd never been one for adventure. Something about the alien woman and her child felt like a puzzle he needed to solve. "You're not going anywhere just yet," Ethan said, trying to sound calm but firm. "We're both going to need time to heal." The woman stared at him for a long moment, as though weighing her options. Her gaze softened slightly and she nodded, almost imperceptibly. She closed her eyes and seemed to drift into unconsciousness once more. Ethan sat there, for a while, holding the child in his arms. She was small, fragile, and still. Her skin was a strange shade of blue, her hair like silver threads that shimmered in the dim light. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, and yet, in that moment, she felt like his responsibility. The idea of her going back to wherever she came from seemed wrong. Like the idea of a child being ripped from a safe home. He took a deep breath and looked out the window, his mind racing. What was this all about? Who were these people? What was their story? But before he could think any more about it, the child in his arms let out a soft sound. Ethan looked down, and the little alien girl blinked up at him, her big eyes filled. "With curiosity, you're safe here," Ethan whispered softly. "I won't let anything happen to you." Her gaze softened, and for a moment it almost felt like she understood. Ethan smiled faintly and brushed a few stray hairs from her face. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let them go. In that barn, in the middle of nowhere, Ethan made a quiet promise to himself. He would protect this child, no matter what. And somehow, he felt the same about her mother. Days passed, and the strange family began to settle into their new routine. Ethan cared for the woman and her child, whom he now called Lyra, in a way that felt natural. Despite the oddity of their situation, the woman Tari remained silent most of the time, resting and recovering from the crash. She was strong, but her body had clearly been through a lot. Ethan would bring her food and check her wounds daily, but she hardly spoke. It was as if she was lost in her own thoughts, trying to come to terms with something that she couldn't yet explain. The child, on the other hand, was a wonder. Lyra grew more curious with each passing day. She watched Ethan with wide eyes as he worked, trying to imitate his every move. Despite the language barrier, it was easy to communicate with her. She pointed at things, smiled, and made sounds that Ethan came to understand as questions. One afternoon, Ethan was working in the garden when he felt Lyra's presence behind him. He turned around to find her standing there, a curious look on her face. "Do you want to help?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lyra nodded, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she smiled. Ethan handed her a small shovel, and though she was small, she eagerly tried to dig alongside him. Couldn't help but smile at how quickly she adapted to everything. The child seemed to learn as fast as he could show her. He realized then that she was no ordinary child. After a while, Tari appeared in the doorway of the barn. Ethan looked up and noticed the change in her. Her eyes were no longer distant and lost. She was standing tall, her posture straight, as though she had made a decision. Tari's gaze softened as she watched Lyra working beside Ethan. "She's strong," Tari said quietly. Her voice was low, but there was an intensity in it, a hint of something buried deep inside. Ethan nodded, taking a step back as Lyra dug, her small hole with determination. "She's more than strong, and curious. She learns faster than any child I've ever known." Tari stepped outside, walking over to where Lyra was. The child stopped and looked up at her. "Mother." Tari knelt down to her level, her hand gently brushing Lyra's hair. "Don't get too used to this," Tari said softly, though her eyes were filled with emotion. "We can't stay here forever," Ethan frowned. He didn't want to argue, but he couldn't help himself. "Why? Why can't you stay? We've been through this. There's no reason for you to leave." Tari stood up and turned her back on him, walking to the edge of the field where the sun was beginning to set. "Don't understand? I have a duty, a responsibility. I am a warrior. I can't hide forever." Ethan followed her, his heart heavy. "I don't care about your duty. You have a child here. Lyra needs you. She doesn't need to go back to wherever you came from. She's safe here." Tari's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't turn to face him. "You don't understand what I'm running from, Ethan. You think this is simple, but I'm not just a mother. I'm a soldier, a warrior with enemies. I've spent my life fighting. I cannot abandon that." Ethan stood still, watching her. His heart felt like it was breaking. He couldn't understand her world, but he understood the love a parent had for their child. And he knew one thing: he wanted them to stay. He wanted this family, no matter how strange or unusual it was. "You don't have to be alone anymore," Ethan said quietly, his voice low and sincere. "I'll protect you. Protect Lyra. You don't have to fight alone." Tari turned to face him then, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. She seemed to be searching for something, some sign that he understood what it meant to be in her shoes. "I don't want to put you in danger," she said softly. "I've already brought too much trouble to your door." Ethan shook his head. "I don't care about that. I care about you and Lyra. You don't have to fight anymore. You can rest. You can have a life here, a peaceful one." Tari took a deep breath, her hand gripping her side as if she were still trying to hold on to something inside her. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer this time, so the walls she had built were starting to come down. "I don't know how to live without fighting. It's all I've ever known." Ethan stepped closer, his voice steady. "You'll learn? We'll learn together." For the first time since her arrival, Tari looked unsure. She looked at Ethan, then at Lyra, who was now running toward them with a big smile on her face. Tari's expression softened, and for a moment, Ethan thought he saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, I don't know if I can ever be just ... a mother, she said quietly. More to herself than to Ethan, but I can try. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a quiet but sincere smile. You don't have to be anything but what you are. Here with us, you're more than enough. Tari nodded slowly. As she looked down at Lyra, the little girl ran up to her, pulling on her mother's sleeve. Mama, she said with a soft, alien voice. Stay. Tari's eyes filled with emotion as she looked down at the child, her heart swelling with a love she had never known. She kneeled and pulled Lyra into her arms, holding her close. I'll stay, Tari whispered, though she knew deep down that the path ahead would never be easy. But for now, in this moment, she would stay. For Lyra, for Ethan, and maybe, just maybe, for herself too. It had been a few weeks since Tari decided to stay with Ethan and Lyra. They had settled into a comfortable routine.
The mornings
Were spent in the fields, working together, while the evenings were for shared meals and quiet talks. Despite the strange and unexpected beginning, Ethan couldn't help but feel like their small family was finally finding peace. But Tari was still restless. She often wandered away from the house, spending long hours alone by the edge of the forest. Ethan noticed this, but he didn't press her. He understood that her past, her life as a warrior, was not something she could leave behind so easily. He could see it in her eyes, the way she would stare off into the distance, as if listening for something just beyond her reach. One day, as Ethan worked in the barn, Lyra came running up to him, her face lighting up with excitement. Papa, she cried, calling him the name she had chosen for him. Mama's talking to someone? Ethan frowned, wiping his hands on a rag. Who? Lyra shrugged, her silver hair bouncing as she looked up at him. I don't know. She's not. Alone, without another word, Ethan followed Lyra out the door, his concern growing with each step. They reached the edge of the field and saw Tari standing in the middle of a clearing. She wasn't alone. A strange device, glowing faintly, hovered beside her. Its lights flickered as if responding to her presence. Ethan froze, a sense of dread. Creeping up his spine, he knew what it was, a communicator. It was the same device she had kept hidden in her belongings when she first arrived. Tari? Ethan called, stepping forward. Tari turned slowly, her face softening when she saw him. She reached out her hand to stop him from coming closer. I need to speak to them, she said quietly, her voice filled with a sadness Ethan hadn't heard before. It's time. Ethan's heart sank. Time for what? He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. Tari, what's going on? Who are you talking to? Tari's eyes lowered, her fingers tracing the edges of the glowing device. It's my people. I've been hiding for too long. The call has come. I can't ignore it. Ethan's stomach twisted. The thought of losing her, of losing Lyra, to some unknown alien world sent a wave of panic through him. No, he said firmly. You can't leave. You belong here. We're a family. We're a family. Tari looked up at him, her face full of pain. I'm not like you, Ethan. I can't just forget everything I've known. I've spent my life fighting. Can't walk away from it all. Lyra, she needs to know where she comes from. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Couldn't. Lose them. Not after everything. Lyra doesn't need to go back, he said softly. She's happy here. You both are. We can make this work, Tari. Please. Tari's expression softened, but there was no mistaking the conflict in her eyes. The device in her hand flickered again, as if urging her to respond. I don't have a choice, she whispered. The people I left behind won't stop until they find me. And they'll come for Lyra too. Ethan stepped forward, his voice strong. Then we fight. We stay together. We don't have to go back to your people. We can stay here, with you, with Lyra, with everything. Tari shook her head. It's not that simple. You don't understand. What's at stake? My world. Our world. It's not safe. Lyra's safety depends on me going back. Ethan's mind raced. He felt trapped, like the walls were closing in around him. But something inside him refused to give up. He had come to care for Tari, for Lyra, and the thought of them leaving, of this life being torn apart, was unbearable. You don't have to face this alone, he said quietly. You have me. Now, Lyra. We'll figure it out together. Tari's eyes filled with unshed tears, her lips trembling. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I've been running for so long, but now, ... I have a family. I'm scared, Ethan. What if I'm not strong enough to protect you both? Ethan reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't know how to protect us alone. We'll fight. Together, no matter what happens. Tari took a deep breath, looking back at the glowing communicator. The voice from the other side was faint, but it was there, calling to her. It's my duty, she whispered. It's what I was born for. And now it's time. Lyra, standing beside Ethan, looked up at her mother. Mama, ... stay, she asked, her voice full of innocence. Tara knelt down to Lyra's level, her face softening. I don't know, sweetheart. I'll always be with you, no matter what. Ethan watched as the bond between mother and daughter grew even stronger. Lyra needed her mother, and Tari needed Lyra more than she knew. With a deep sigh, Tari looked at Ethan one last time. I have to go, she said, her voice filled with sorrow. Ethan felt his heart break. I won't stop you, he said softly, though every part of him screamed for her to stay. But, ... if you go, please come back. Don't leave us. Don't leave her. Tari nodded, her gaze steady. She didn't speak again, but the look in her eyes said everything. She knew that whatever happened, this was a turning point. A moment. That could change everything. As Tari turned away and activated the communicator, the lights from the device flickered brightly, casting shadows across the ground. Ethan stood frozen, watching as she prepared to face whatever future lay ahead. And in that moment, he understood something deep inside himself. This wasn't just about Tari's past. It was about their future together. No matter how much they tried to resist it, their bond had already been forged, and nothing could break it. The day after Tari activated the communicator, the atmosphere around the farm felt different. There was a quiet tension in the air, something unspoken. Ethan had watched her leave the field, heading toward the woods, the device still glowing. In her hand, good. He couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change. Lyra, sensing her mother's unease, had been unusually quiet, clinging to Ethan's side. He could feel the weight of the silence between them as they worked in the fields. They hadn't spoken much about what had happened, but Ethan knew that neither of them fully understood what it meant. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, Ethan was sitting on the porch when he saw Tari returning. She was walking quickly, her face hard and focused. The communicator was no longer glowing, but there was a look in her eyes that made Ethan's heart race. He stood up as she approached, his voice cautious. Tari, what's going on? You look like you've seen something? Tari stopped, just short of him, taking a deep breath. I've made a decision, she said, her voice strained. My people are coming. They'll be here soon. Ethan's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Are they coming for us? Tari nodded grimly. Yes, they'll be looking for me. They'll be looking for Lyra. We can't stay here anymore, Ethan. They'll destroy everything to get us back. Ethan's mind raced, his first instinct being to protect his family at all costs. Then we leave. We go somewhere far away. I'll take you and Lyra somewhere safe. We'll hide. Tari shook her head, her eyes dark with fear. It's not that simple. My people won't stop until they find us. They're not just looking for me, they're looking for Lyra too. She's important. Ethan frowned, confusion filling his mind. Important? Tari hesitated, her gaze flicking toward Lyra, who was playing near the barn, unaware of the conversation unfolding. Tari lowered her voice, as if she feared someone might be listening. Lyra is the heir to a powerful legacy, my people believe. She will bring peace to our world. Or, they believe she will bring war. Either way, they need her. And they won't stop until they get her back. Ethan took a step back, trying to process her words. You mean to tell me that they'll come here? For a little girl? Tari's eyes hardened. Yes, they won't care who stands in there. They'll take her if they have to. They'll destroy everything. Ethan's chest tightened with fear and anger. looked out at the fields, imagining what could happen if Tari's people arrived. We can't let them do that. I won't. Let them hurt her. I won't let them take her. Tari's gaze softened, but there was still that sadness in her eyes. I know you want to protect her. I do too, but you don't understand the power they hold. They won't be kind. They'll burn everything to the ground if it means taking Lyra. Ethan gritted his teeth, a surge of protectiveness rising in his chest. Then we fight. I'll fight. We'll fight them together. Tari shook her head. You don't have the weapons. You don't have the strength to face them. I don't. Need weapons, Ethan said firmly, his voice filled with determination. I've fought for my life before. I'll fight for Lyra, for both of you. For the first time, Tari's expression softened with a hint of respect. I know you would. But this isn't like anything you've ever faced. They're not just warriors, they're conquerors. Ethan stepped closer to her, his resolve growing. Then we make sure they don't conquer us. We'll protect Lyra, no matter what. Tari hesitated, then reached out and placed a hand on his arm. Ethan, I wish it were that simple. But there's more. They're not just coming for Lyra. They'll come for me too. They'll think I betrayed them. They'll want to make an example of me. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He had known Tari was a warrior, but hearing the full truth made him realize just how dangerous their situation was. What do we do then? How do we stop them? Tari looked toward the horizon, her expression hardening. We don't stop them. We delay them. I have to go to them. I have to face my people. I have to tell them that I'm done. I'm done with fighting. I'm done with the war. Ethan's heart sank. But you can't go alone. Tari's eyes met his, and for a moment, the distance between them felt like miles. It's the only way, Ethan. If I don't go to them, they'll come here and destroy everything. I have to face them, and I have to do it for Lyra, for all of us. Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of the decision hanging heavily on his chest. He didn't want to let her go, but he knew she was right. This was something she had to do. But that didn't mean he had to like it. I'll come with you, he said, his voice firm. Tari shook her head. No, this is something I have to do alone, but you can help in other ways. Keep Lyra safe. Protect this place. When I return, we'll figure out what's next. Ethan nodded, his heart heavy but filled with determination. You're not alone, Tari. You'll never be alone. Tari gave him a small smile before turning toward Lyra, who was looking up at them now, sensing the change in the air. Ethan followed her gaze and saw the worry in Lyra's eyes. Tari crouched down to her daughter's level, her voice gentle. Lyra, listen to me. Everything is going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of that. Lyra's small face was full of questions, but she nodded, trusting her mother completely. Tari turned back to Ethan. We'll get through this. Together. Ethan nodded, his resolve stronger than ever, knew the path ahead would be difficult. But he was ready to face whatever came next. For Lyra, for Tari, for their family. The next few days were filled with uncertainty and tension. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. Tari had made her decision, and though it pained him to admit it, he knew she was right. She had to face her people. The warriors, who once served with her, the people who had made her the woman she was, would never let her go without a fight. But he also knew that if she left, Lyra would be vulnerable. Her people would stop at nothing to take her back. Was the only one who could protect her. Ethan felt powerless, knowing that the only thing he could do was wait, hope, and keep their home safe. It had been 3 days since Tari left. Ethan kept busy, working the fields and checking on Lyra. The little girl had become his world. Her bright eyes, her laughter, her curious questions, she was everything to him now. Every day she grew stronger, smarter, but there was a sadness. In her eyes, too, she missed her mother. Even though she tried to hide it, Ethan could see it. It was late in the afternoon when the air shifted. Ethan paused in the middle of the field, his hand on the shovel, felt it before he heard it, a change in the wind, a heaviness in the air. He looked toward the edge of the forest, where the trees swayed in a sudden gust. His instincts told him something was wrong. Lyra, he called over his shoulder. Stay inside. Lyra, who had been playing with the animals in the barn, looked up at him with wide eyes. She could sense it too, the tension, the fear. She nodded and quickly ran inside the house, just as Ethan heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, and many his. Heart pounded in his chest as he looked back toward the edge of the forest. The first figure appeared, a tall, imposing figure dressed in dark armor. Behind them, more shapes emerged, moving quickly, silently. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. They were here. The warriors. They had arrived. Ethan moved quickly, grabbing a pitchfork from the barn and holding it tightly. His mind raced, but his body acted on instinct. He had to protect Lyra. He had to protect this home. Couldn't let them take her. He heard the warriors before he saw them, their boots crunching on the dirt road. He knew that he was outmatched. These weren't just ordinary people. These were highly trained soldiers. They wouldn't hesitate to use their strength to get what they wanted. But Ethan was determined. He had raised Lyra as his own. He had promised to protect her. And that meant fighting, no matter how impossible. It seemed the leader of the warriors, a tall alien with a dark cloak, stepped forward, his eyes scanning the land. When he saw Ethan, he stopped, narrowing his eyes. "You?" the leader said, his voice deep and cold. "You are the one who has been hiding her." Ethan stood his ground, tightening his grip on the pitchfork. "I'm not hiding anyone. Is my family, and you won't take her." The leader stepped closer, his presence powerful and intimidating. "You are weak human. You don't understand what you're dealing with. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to take her." Ethan's heart raced, but his resolve didn't waver. He didn't have much, but he had his land, and he had his will. "She's not yours to take. She belongs here, with us." The leader tilted his head, studying him. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. She is the key to our future. Our people cannot survive without her. You've made a grave mistake hiding her from us." "I don't care about your people," Ethan said, his voice low but filled with strength. "Lyra's my daughter now, and I won't let you hurt her." The leader's eyes flickered with surprise, but he quickly regained his composure. He raised his hand, signaling to the others, "Take him." The warriors lunged forward, and Ethan fought back with everything he had. The pitchfork was heavy in his hands, but it was the only weapon he had. Swung it with all his strength, striking one of the warriors in the chest. The force of the blow sent the warrior stumbling back, but there were too many of them. Ethan's breath came in quick bursts as he defended himself, trying to keep the attackers at bay. But he knew he couldn't hold them off forever. They were stronger, faster. They had the training. Just as one of the warriors closed in on him, a familiar voice rang out. "Stop!" Ethan froze, recognizing the voice immediately. Tari. She had returned. The warriors paused, confusion spreading across their faces as Tari stepped forward, her hands raised in a peaceful gesture. She was no longer in her armor. Her clothes were simple, but she stood tall, her presence commanding. "You heard me," Tari said, her voice steady. "Stop." The leader of the warriors glared at her. "You've betrayed us, Tari. You know what must be done." Tari's gaze softened as she looked at Ethan, then at Lyra, who had come to stand beside him, her small hand clutching his. "I haven't betrayed anyone," she said quietly. "I've chosen my family. I've chosen them over everything." The leader's face twisted with anger. "You will regret this. You cannot abandon your duty." Tari stepped closer, her voice firm. "I already have. I'm done with fighting. Done with the war. I choose this life." Ethan watched as the tension between them thickened, the warriors unsure of what to do. Tari was no longer the soldier they had known. She was something else now, someone who had found peace in the love she had with her daughter and with him. The leader took a step back, his expression hardening. "Then you leave us no choice. You've made your decision. We'll leave. Remember, Tari, you can never run from who you are." Tari nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I won't run. I'll stay here. With them." The leader turned to leave, his warriors following behind him. Though their eyes never left Tari, Ethan watched them disappear into the woods. His body still tense, his mind racing. Lyra looked up at her mother, her eyes full of questions. "Mama!" Are they gone? Tari knelt down to her daughter, her hands cupping her face. They're gone, sweetheart. They won't be coming back. Ethan stepped forward, placing a hand on Tari's shoulder. You did it. You protected us. Tari smiled, her face filled with relief. We did it together. For the first time in days, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The danger wasn't over, but they had survived this. And together, they would face whatever came next, stronger than ever. The days that followed the warriors' departure were filled with a strange kind of peace. The farm, which had once been just a quiet retreat for Ethan, now felt like a true home. It was more than just the land and the house. It was the family. They had built together. Ethan worked the fields as usual. Though his thoughts often drifted to Tari, he could see how much she had changed. The warrior who had once been so fierce was now a mother, a protector, and a partner. He knew she carried the weight of her past with her, but she was learning to let go of the fight. She was here now, with them. That was all that mattered. Lyra had also changed. No longer the small, silent child she had been when she first arrived, she had grown strong and confident. She followed Ethan everywhere, asking questions about everything she saw. Sometimes she would even try to help in the garden, her small hands awkwardly digging in the soil beside him. It was clear that she was happy, but there was still a sadness in her eyes, a quiet longing for something she couldn't explain. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Tari joined Ethan outside. She had been quiet for much of the day, her thoughts distant. But when she came to him now, she seemed more at peace. Ethan, she began, her voice calm but filled with emotion. I've been thinking. He looked up from the work he was doing, sensing the seriousness in her tone. About what? About the future.
Ouch!
About what we've been through. And where we go from here, she said softly. Ethan wiped his hands on his pants and leaned back against the fence. We've been through a lot, but I think we've made it. We're safe. Tari smiled faintly, but shook her head. It's not just about safety. It's about what comes next. I've spent my life running, hiding, fighting. But now, I don't know what to do. Ethan met her gaze. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to run. I know, she whispered. But it's not that simple. The past doesn't just disappear. I still have to face my people. I don't know if I can keep hiding from them. Ethan stepped closer, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. You don't have to face them alone. We're a family now. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Tari's eyes softened as she looked at him. I never thought I'd find something like this. A place where I belong, a family. She glanced down at Lyra, who was playing near the barn. I never thought I'd find peace. Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. You found it. You found it here, with us. The two stood in silence for a moment, watching as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon. For the first time in a long time, Tari seemed to truly relax. The tension in her shoulders eased, and her expression softened. Ethan could see that she was beginning to let go of the fear and the anger that had followed her for so long. We've built something good here, she said quietly, and I'm not ready to let it go. Ethan nodded. Neither am I. Tari took a deep breath, her eyes still on Lyra. Then we stay. We stay here. We build our future. Not just for us, but for Lyra too. She deserves a chance to grow up in a place where she can be safe, where she can be a child. Ethan's chest tightened with emotion. The weight of the decision was clear in Tari's words, but there was also a quiet strength in her voice. She had chosen them. She had chosen this life. We'll make sure she has that chance, Ethan promised. She'll grow up strong, just like you, and we'll be there every step of the way. Tari nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. Thank you, Ethan, for everything. For a moment, the world seemed to fall away. The farm, the people who lived on it, and the bond they shared felt like everything that mattered. There was no more running, no more fighting. Just the quiet, comfort of home. Later that evening, as they sat around the table, eating a simple meal together, Lyra looked up from her plate, her innocent gaze fixed on her mother. Mama, she said, her voice soft but full of curiosity. "Are we safe now?" Tari smiled at her daughter, her heart full of love. "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe. We're home." Lyra smiled back, her eyes lighting up with relief. "Good," she said, before turning her attention back to her food. But for the first time, her words felt like a promise, like they had truly found a place where they belonged. Ethan and Tari exchanged a look, both of them knowing that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but they would face them together. They had already come so far, and now, with Lyra by their side, they could start the next chapter of their lives, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a better future. As the night grew darker and the stars filled the sky above them, Tari leaned back in her chair, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. They had found their place in the world. Nothing, not even the past, could take that away.